Namaskar friends, I welcome you back to video 4 of week 6. Today we step into one of the most dynamic and unpredictable spaces in the justice system, and that is courtroom testimony. Unlike FIRs and charge sheets, which are written and structured, testimonies are spoken, spontaneous, emotional, and often shaped by pressure, fear, memory gaps, or cross examination tactics. Courtrooms reveal how language behaves under stress. And as forensic linguists, we study not just what witnesses say, but how they say it. We need to be very clear that what makes courtroom testimonies linguistically unique. Friends, courtroom testimonies sit at the intersection of memory, emotion, expectations, and strategy. These are the four crossroads where we find the center. At the center we find the courtroom testimonies. They are performances, but not rehearsed performances. The witness narrates the past while standing inside an environment that feels intimidating, evaluative, and formal. Linguistically, testimonies carry hesitation, self-correction, emotional pauses, shifts in tone, and moments of internal conflict. Unlike written statements, spoken testimonies reveal real life cognition. See, when we look at memory versus language, we need to understand that how humans retrieve events under stress. Memory is not a recording device, it is a reconstruction process. And when witnesses reconstruct memory, language becomes the medium. Under courtroom pressure, witnesses may forget sequence. They may mix the details. They may overemphasize certain parts. They may understand emotional trauma. They misremember sensory information. These are likely to happen. It does not mean that they are lying. It means they are human. Courts sometimes misinterpret genuine cognitive slips as deception. This is where linguistic expertise becomes crucial. How a witness responds depends heavily on how a question is framed. An open-ended question invites narratives. Leading question plant linguistic structure into a witness' mind. Ambiguous questions create confusion. Complex questions overwhelm memory. See how questions are asked. That is very important. Courtroom questioning is not neutral. It shapes language. A witness who appears inconsistent may simply be reacting to strategic questioning, not changing the story. Friends, cross-examination is like a theater of linguistic pressure. Yes, cross-examination is designed to break linguistic stability. Lawyers attempt to introduce doubt by exhausting the witness narrative flow. They may ask rapid-fire questions. They may repeat questions with slight lexical variations. They may focus excessively on minor inconsistencies. Under this pressure, witnesses often shift from confident narration to fragmented responses. A linguist must understand that linguistic fragmentation is a stress response, not proof of fabrication. We need to identify the indicators of cost testimony. We can find it when we find that language sounds rehearsed. Friends, courts are very off-coast witnesses. Linguistically, coaching shows up as unnatural repetition of legal vocabulary, over precision in timing, too perfect chronology, absence of hesitation markers, and the last one is uniform tone despite emotional subject matter. Friends, real experiences carry linguistic imperfections. Rehearsed testimonies carry mechanical consistency. A forensic linguist listens for this unnatural patterns and identifies. Friends, when we see emotional leakage in testimony, we can see what the voice reveals beyond words. Friends, emotion affects speech. A witness recalling trauma speaks differently from one recalling ordinary events. And when there is a stress, definitely stress affects speech. When there is a fear, fear affects fluency. When there is anger, anger affects pacing. Friends, genuine testimony shows emotional congruence. Words and emotions are aligning. On the other hand, fabricated testimony often shows emotional mismatch. Calm tone with dramatic claims or exaggerated tone with trivial detail. We can find such kind of mismatches. These mismatches help courts evaluate credibility of the witness, or we can say testimony. Friends, when it comes to courtroom power dynamics and linguistic vulnerability, we need to understand that power dynamics shape testimony. Children, elderly witnesses, survivors of violence, or individuals from marginalized communities may struggle to navigate courtroom language. They may misunderstand questions, simply answers, or avoid confrontation. Courts sometimes misinterpret these as weakness or inconsistency. But linguistic expertise reframes it correctly as a natural response to power imbalance. Let's understand with the example. Consider a case of sexual assault where a survivor stated in examination in chief, "He forced me onto the bed," and in cross examination said, "He pushed me and I fell on the bed." Defense argued this was a contradiction. A linguistic analysis showed both expressions described the same event using slightly different lexical framing. The High Court held that variations in phrasing are natural and in oral testimony, and it cannot be treated as material contradictions. Friends, India's linguistic diversity adds another layer of complexity. Witnesses often testify in one language, court records capture it in the another language, and translation introduces loss of tone, loss of cultural nuances, loss of emotional texture, substitution of culturally lauded expressions. Courts must be sensitive to these distortions. Forensic linguists help by analyzing whether inconsistencies arise from translation rather than intent. Now, when we look at the expert linguistic insight during testimony evaluation, we find it. A forensic linguist may assist in evaluating naturalness of the speech, emotional congruence, pragmatic appropriateness, discourse coherence, impact of questioning style, translation distortions. The goal is not to declare guilt or innocence, but to guide the court in interpreting testimony accurately. Now, as a forensic linguist, rather a budding forensic linguist, it is very important for you to train your ear for courtroom language. As you grow in this field, you listen for where the witness pauses, where they repeat, where their tone shifts, where they hesitate, and where they over-explain. These micro behaviors reveal psychological and cognitive layers that written transcripts fail to capture. Friends, thank you very much for joining this deep exploration of courtroom testimony. Spoken language inside the courtroom is complex, fragile, and deeply human. As a forensic linguist, we must listen with empathy, precision, and scientific discipline. In the next session, we'll explore linguistic misinterpretation in new criminal law trials, where subtle distortions can change everything. Till then, stay tuned to the course. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you very much. Namaskar.